I'm going to start off with the 3 reasons why people don't invest with you right now. Number 1, you don't have what they want. Obvious, you don't have the deal they want, fair enough. Number 2, you have something people want, your investment rocks, but you're not showing it to the right people. So you're showing it to the wrong people. And number 3, which is the most common, is you have what they want, but it's not packaged in the way that it needs to be for those people. For context, my name's Marcin. My team and I have done over $1 billion in multifamily and commercial assets. I've personally raised well over $100 million in retail capital, another $300 million in institutional capital. And my clients that I've worked with on the mentorship side have raised a couple $100 million to do their deals. Beyond all of that, what my real kind of specialty was, where I first cut my teeth, was teaching this in private equity. So I've got over 20 years experience, and where I started was literally teaching financial advisors, registered advisors who are in the business of raising capital for a living, how to brand, how to market, how to sell, and effectively how to raise capital. What I really want to get across to you guys, most of you know this, is that most people know that people don't invest with companies, they invest with people. Most of us inherently kind of know this. But the reason why someone invests with you ultimately is because they trust you. And when they trust you, they trust your abilities to execute. And that's really it. Now, look, we can hide behind cap rates and all the technical stuff, but at the end of the day, investors invest with you. Now, think about the last time you had an investor invest with you. They call you a couple days before. They're like, hey, do I make the check out to you? Or no, you make it out to 123 LLC. Well, why is that? Because as far as they're concerned, they're investing with you. If investors are A, not showing up to your calls, B, not excited about your deals, C, not investing with you, or D, you find yourself chasing them all the time, you need to ask yourself the toughest question of all: why don't they trust you? I'm going to show you guys how to solve that. As a starting point, what we have to do here, guys, is we got to work backwards and design a process that builds your brand. So there's 2 ways to do that. One is the long way. And the long way is the way we all know about. Things like, well, people are going to see my actions. People are going to see what I do. The results are going to speak for themselves. They're going to see my track record. I mean, yes, that's true. But 5, 10, 15 years, who has time for that? You really don't want to take that long, especially now as we're transitioning in the marketplace. And then the next 6 or 18 months, you're going to have so many opportunities in the marketplace. The goal will be for people to collapse that trust component to now, so that every meeting you show up to, you're always showing up in the context of how much do they want to invest and when, as opposed to, do I even want to invest with this person? Does that make sense, guys? Like, when you can show up to a meeting and your investor already mentally has bought into you, your team, your concept, your culture, a lot of the things that the previous speakers, if they can buy into those things, and then the decision is binary of ones and zeros, where am I investing with this person? So what I want to show you guys is the other way to do things. It's a different way to raise your next 7, 8, or 9 figures from new investors. And this is the biggest piece that for a lot of people here in this marketplace that are just oblivious to, unfortunately. And I call it the target system. And it's the exact strategy that I've used to literally raise well into 100 million, plus the institutional capital, plus my clients. And the best part is, even as I stand here today, I literally checked my email this morning. We've had 250 new investor inquiries in the last 72 hours. Now, are all of them going to be accredited investors ready to write $1 million check? No. But will 2, will 3, will 5? Yeah. What if you could do that every week? I bring that up to you guys because you might be up here like, well, why do I need a brand? That's exactly why you need a brand. You need a brand so that when you have a book or a webinar or a podcast, you can push it out to your followers, your core champions, as I'll talk about later, and they pick it up and they get you that momentum. For those of you who are developers here, you do the same thing with your new construction, right? You pre-sell 30, 50% of your units so that you can go to the market and show 70% sold. And people are like, well, what happened? I just saw this. Exactly. You want to be able to create that demand with your investors. That's the piece that I want to get into. Now, the secret in what I'm going to share with you guys here is in the function that I want you to pay attention on: how to capture, convert, and nurture those leads. If you implement these easy steps, you'll literally have success within the first 5 days. So the 5-day capital challenge, we had over 10,000 people go through it. And we literally found ways to show you how to implement this into your brand today and get success literally within 5 days. So for context, there's over 24 million high net worth people here in the United States. Another 17,000 family offices, and funds. So they're all looking for a place to invest. So there's no question that there's a shortage of investors. The only thing there's a shortage of is well-packaged opportunities, packaged in the right way and shown to the right people. So for context, for us to grow our database to 55,000 people from scratch, literally from scratch, 24 months ago, pardon me, it's 68,000. My wife and my partner told me it was 68,000. I got to update the ad. But we have to do, number one is audit our network. Number two is we have to create our ideal investor avatar, which is our tribe. And number three, we have to create the specific outreach strategies for each one of these groups. Now, your tribe, if you guys start thinking about your brand and the people in your network, are going to be broken out into 5 different types of people. Number one is your core champions. These are the people that you lean on for any new endeavor, any new venture, any new business, any book, podcast, whatever it is, because even the algorithms online, they start to push things based on people picking them up. So if you get a couple hundred or a couple thousand people that love you no matter what you're doing, you're immediately giving Google and Facebook and everybody what they need. And you need that. The second group is your industry allies. Hopefully in these rooms, you guys are making industry allies, and there's a way to go about doing that too. Third is mentors and advisors. Then you have your followers, and finally your passive supporters. The second piece is attention and leads. Now this one is, there's 2 types of platforms. The first one is the platforms you own, and the second one is platforms that are other people's that you borrow. So here's exactly what we did with platforms we own. Number one, live events. So we had our own live events. We'll talk about that. 2, live webinars. 3, Facebook groups. And some of these you guys may have some experience with. Where some things get off the rails for most of you is the next ones. Number 1, online challenges. 5-day, 3-day challenges. These are things that I can't tell you how many times I get stopped at conferences, in hallways, whatever it is. Hey, thank you for hosting the challenge. It changed my approach, this. Like, you can't buy that kind of goodwill with people. And it takes me 5 hours to do it, or 3 hours to do it. The next one is evergreen lead funnels. Probably the most misunderstood thing in this entire industry is how to do lead funnels. And I can tell you, coming from somebody who 24 months ago didn't know what a click funnel was, I can tell you that that is the most misunderstood thing in this space. But if you want to create real leverage for yourself to literally attract these clients on autopilot, this is going to be it. And then finally, the last piece, I don't recommend this for everybody, but a book. Now, our book, there's a quick hack to it. We literally wrote the book backwards. So we tested funnels, lead magnets, ebooks before we wrote the actual book. Why did we do that? Well, we figured out which book to write. Most people write a book and then try to push it out, right? I figured out what the market wanted, and that's why my book became a bestseller. That's the right way to do it. So other people's platforms. So here's what we did there. Getting on other people's podcasts, conference stages, masterminds, meetups, other people's social media. Look, all of this is great, but the most important thing for your brand is to do it in a way where you get invited onto other people's platforms to tell your story, because the way you package yourself, you're doing them a favor to their community because of how you share what you're doing. Because nobody wants to invite you onto their podcast to pitch your syndication. I'm sorry, no matter how great you think your deal is, nobody wants you on their podcast to pitch your deal. You're not adding value. So how do you do that? The best part of this, guys, if you're sitting there, you're like, man, that's so much stuff. Like, you don't have to do all this stuff. You can just do 1 or 2 things, and literally you can get to a point where even if you don't have a team or virtual assistants, you can put this on autopilot. The next piece, and this is probably my favorite part of this whole presentation, is recognition and branding. So listen, a brand creates familiarity, trust, certainty with your investors. And in the next couple years, the certainty is going to be the thing that your investors crave. You can talk IRRs and equity multiples and all that stuff until you're blue in the face. They don't care. They're going to be scared. They're going to see the newspapers. They're going to see CNN. They're going to see Fox. They're going to see lawsuits. They're going to see foreclosures. They need to see certainty. You need to create a sense of certainty for your investors. When you're branded, that happens for you. You don't have to buy investor lists. You don't have to, deals will find you. Banks will find you. Literally, people will come find you. They will give you the best deals because they'll know you can close. So here are the 4 things that you guys need to know as the first part of getting the right recognition with your investors to attract wealthy investors. Part 1 is high status. So think about in your own life, when was the last time you've ever invested with somebody that you didn't think was at least at your level or above your level? Never. If you did, you probably thought it was charity. And that's the tough truth. You just don't look at it that way. So status is important. Now, how do you establish status is through your thought leadership. Thought leadership, your ability to communicate a thought, whether it's on a stage, on a podcast, in an article, in a newsletter, thank you very much, in whatever medium is going to make the difference. The next piece there is your experience. So how do you demonstrate your thought leadership? You do it from a position of strength. Whether you're a 20-year plumber, 20-year tradesman, you're in the military for 15 years, you're an engineer, we're going to talk more about this after, but leaning into your thought leadership through your competence and experience puts you in a position where you can talk about. So myself, 20 years, private equity, capital raising. I'm the right guy to give this talk. I'm the right guy to write the book that I wrote. And that's why it works, because it's consistent. So all of you have this from your own perspective. And then the last piece is trustworthiness. The first three aren't worth anything. If you look at that person, you're like, I just don't trust her. I just don't trust him. We've all had this where everyone else is telling, oh, they're so brilliant. They're so this, they're so that, but your gut tells you otherwise. So how do you weave these four together? There's 6 components. And the first one is your story. Your story can be literally your personal or your professional. And it doesn't have to be accolades. It doesn't have to be real estate. It's who you are as a person. Show me your character. Show me how you operate, how you are as a person. Because ultimately, those are the things I'm looking for. When someone writes you a check, they don't drive off in a new car or get a new house. They get what? A piece of paper that says they own 250,000 units in, said apartment building. So that personal touch of you has to be there, that personal story. Now, part 2 to that is your why. So most of us, the why is financial, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, lean right into it. If it's, I want to quit my 9 to 5, great. I want to retire my spouse, fantastic. I want to retire my grandparents, fantastic. I want to do something with my church, amazing. I want to leave a legacy with my kids. These are all things that need to be built into your story because your investors need to understand what makes you tick. And it has to legitimately be what it is. And there's no shame in it being, hey, I'm just trying to leave my W-2. There's nothing wrong with that. The next 3 are your ability to demonstrate your competence, your expertise and your competence. So how do you do it? Here's our strategy. Here's the asset, and here's the market. And by the way, the more laser focused you are on these 3, the more credible you are, and the easier it is to go fast and go hard because you're not spread out into 300 different directions. I turned down so many deals of a lifetime because I'm not a storage guy. I'm not an industrial guy. I might be an LP in those things, but I'm not that guy. And that's okay. My investors appreciate that because when I say, hey, we're buying this building, great, we're good, we're gone. Let's do it. And you create that level of confidence when you're hyper-focused. And the last one is your unfair advantage. So what is the thing, professionally or personally or otherwise, that makes you uniquely qualified to talk about the thing you're qualified about? Maybe you grew up in a house of real estate agents and you know the neighborhood better than anyone else. Maybe your father works for the city and you were part of the city planning meetings because you used to go there all the time. Maybe your mother was an architect. Maybe you grew up in a house of physicians and you have a lot of high net worth friends. There's something that makes you uniquely qualified. And it's important that you identify that and really lean into it because everything else I say to you guys here today gets so much simpler if you just get clear on what that is. Your 4 must-haves and your 6 pillars create what I call your personal brand identity. Now, the question I have for you guys is, are you presenting yourself this way now? Probably not. Maybe you're scratching at the surface at a few of these things. Hopefully now that I've laid it out for you, it gets a little easier to identify. But if you think about it, would I as an investor, if I met you in the hallway, feel about you the way you want me to feel about your personal brand, just based on what I can see online, just based on what I can research, just based on how I get introduced to you? Now, if you're saying, well, I have a good reputation, that's amazing. But 5, 10, 15 years is a long time to wait to build that. And my whole point is to show you guys how to reduce that time frame. So when you show up for that meeting, people are already 80% there. So instead of having 100 meetings, you have 10. Instead of back and forth with 35 people, 3. Save yourself time. So obviously it goes without saying, to build your brand, you have to have a quality network, and it has to sell for you 24/7. Literally, when I get off the stage, there'll be another 10 to 30 inquiries into our business. as potential investors, the LPs that want to be into our brand. Why is that? Because I've laid the groundwork over the last couple of years carefully and methodically in the context of how I want to represent myself in public. And it's all true, it's just very specific. So when you Google me, you'll see a very specific 2, 3, 4 things that I talk about. A lot of you guys can talk about 100 different things. And because you do, you don't get noticed. Because nobody Googles things that way. Think about when you Google stuff. Do you Google guy's opinion on real estate? No, you look for specific things. You're looking for asset management in Texas, trying to figure out how to find this in this. And the more specific you can be, guys, the internet is a big place and there's no need to try to pretend to be everything. And a lot of us do that because we haven't taken the time to figure out the specifics of where we fit. The next piece is your goals and milestones. So the 3 roadmaps for your brand and your marketing are your urgent roadmap, you've got your evergreen roadmap, and you have creative roadmap. Now, your urgent roadmap is the one that you can implement literally within 30, 60 days, where you bring your brand, your marketing, your prowess, all those things together to get immediate results. I wanted a #1 bestseller. I weaponized my database in a very specific way to get the result I wanted. That's a very small example. If you want to create a sense of urgency with your investors that's real before you reach out to your investors, you can manufacture this. That's what an urgent roadmap is. The next one is your evergreen roadmap. Now, this one is your ongoing communication with your investors to keep them warm. And honestly, this is the most important part, because all of you know, keeping your leads warm is the easiest way to raise money before you actually need it. And that's what this will do for you. And then finally, your creative roadmap. This is the one that really leans into your eminence and allows you to position yourself as a category of one. So literally, you can take your unfair advantage and some of the other things that I've shown you guys here tonight and package that as your brand and get invited to speak on stages, podcasts, and literally, yes, you're technically a capital raiser. Yes, you're technically an asset manager. But because you package yourself in such a way that's unique and new to people, they actually want to hear what you have to say. So I know it sounds complicated, but trust me, once you start putting some of this stuff together, you can put this on autopilot, and then it gets real simple, real fast. The second last piece here is earnings and expectation. You're not making any money with your personal brand right now because most real estate investors literally live feast or famine. I know it because a lot of my buddies are in this room and it's always feast or famine. It's the next deal, it's the next acquisition, when the truth is you all have expertise and experience that you should be monetizing. And there's at least 15 ways for you to monetize it outside of flogging courses and doing the whole seminar thing. And what that'll do is it'll give you the ability to wait, to have to wait, because if you're waiting right now, it's painful. So there's other ways for you to monetize what you've got in here that doesn't include having to create a course. You can do it, and the ultimate flex is if you can do that in a way where you also position yourself as a thought leader. So I explained it, I think, to one of the people outside, is if right now you're paying money to find clients, what if you got paid to find clients? Think about the reverse of that. You get paid to find clients instead of paying to find clients. That's what thought leadership does. Now, once you've packaged yourself and you have the brand, you can literally invert the entire equation. Now, if you don't want to be on stage like this, that's fine. You can be behind the scenes. I know people doing incredibly well in this world, monetizing what they know without actually having to be on stage. And then finally, I've got about a minute and a half here. Timing and structure. This is one of the favorite things that I created out of necessity for myself. It's called the Easy Framework. The Easy Framework, here's a real example. I bought 144 units in Houston last year, and we brought some investor capital, and here's how the framework works. So you get on a phone with a potential investor, and rather than auditioning for the investment, which so many of us do, you flip the conversation in a matter where they're actually coming to you. So how do you do that? You find 3 things that are exclusive about your deal. 2, abundance. Create leverage without being needy with your investors. 3, communicate scarcity and constraints in time and capital. And then 4, how do you ask for a commitment without being a salesy, pushy person? You're on the phone with an investor. Hey, John, I know we talked about working together. We missed out the last deal. Are you still interested in opportunities? I am. Beautiful. Listen, I have this deal. We're buying it, $77,000 a door, well below market value. It's right across the street from the new hospital, and the rents are $400 below. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in? Yeah, it does. You don't get into cap rate compression and vacancy and all this other stuff. You just keep it simple. A is abundance. Listen, I'm glad I got a hold of you. I'm actually going to be at an event tomorrow, and I'm just going to be presenting this. So I just wanted to get in front of you with this before I do that. So what does that do? It changes the frame of the conversation because I'm not calling you to bless the deal. I'm telling you, I'm doing this. This is happening. Do you want to be part of it? And if you can take that frame, it moves people. S is for scarcity. So look, John, we've got about $1 million that we're looking for this. I'm just making up. We're looking for $1 million on this deal still. Our average client has been about 150 grand. So we only need another 7, maybe 8 people to participate. Then you'll have a back and forth. And then here's the most valuable thing for you guys from this entire conversation, if nothing else, is obviously you're going to have more questions. I'm going to send you the full package, the full data room. But if everything checked out, is there an amount you consider investing? If they're legitimately interested, they'll always preface it with, if it is what I think it is, I'd probably do 200K. Okay, great. So why don't we do this? Like I said, I had about $800,000 left. Why don't I set the $200,000 aside for you for the time being? I still got a few more phone calls I have to make, and we can get on. I can send you the data room. We can get on a call on Monday. How's that sound? While they're already soft committing themselves. There's a lot of these little things, guys, that you can use to implement within your business. Now, the ultimate move is when you can build these questions and prompts and positioning statements into your branding well before you get on a phone. So literally, I show up to meetings with investors. I'm not thinking, are they going to invest? I'm just thinking, is it 100? Is it 250? Is it 500? What are we doing? So how do you set that up? And that is part of your personal brand. Build your brand because no one else will do it for you.